Good morning. Last week we started the first reading on time value of money. I'm not sure you were not in class then, so I hope you'll be able to catch up. So part of what we discussed last week was the fact that for time value of money questions, the good thing is you can solve a lot of the questions using just your calculator. So all you need to focus on is, trying to understand the concept so that when you see a question, you know exactly what is being asked, right? Part of what we also talked about is, again, how to use your calculator. I don't know if you have your calculator here. Okay, maybe you can go to Play Store or Apple Store to download. So we spoke about, interest rates, the different names that we can give interest rates depending on the perspective that you're looking at it from. If you recollect, we mentioned opportunity costs, right? Return on investments, required return, different names. The beautiful thing is they all refer to the same thing, right? We also said, okay, the name of the calculator. Oh, you have it. Okay. Yeah, so I would come and talk about how to use the calculator briefly. All right, so we spoke about, the different names that we give to interest rates, right? Then to the calculator now. Remember I had said earlier that for most time value of money questions, you can solve using your calculator. If you check the second row of buttons, you would see a number of variables, N, I over Y, right? PMT, PV, FV, right? Now, the meaning of each of these variables is important for you to know. N is the number of compounding periods in the question. I remember at the last class, we emphasized the fact that you shouldn't consider N as just number of years. Because if, for example, you have a question that says a particular guy is investing 1 million naira, right, for 2 years, right, and you are told that the compounding frequency is monthly. So the question is, so what is N? Is N 2 years? No, it's not. Because if the interest rate is compounded monthly, in a 2-year period, you have 24 months. So your N is defined as the number of compounding periods in the question, right? Similarly, I over Y is the interest rate per compounding period. Now we know that usually when you go to a bank to take a facility, you'll be given interest rates. Maybe they tell you, oh, this facility is 50% per annum, and then somewhere they put maybe compounded quarterly. Right, so if I tell you that you're paying 50% per annum and the compounding frequency is quarterly, what that means is that your interest rate per compounding period, remember we are dealing with quarterly interest rate now, would be 50 divided by 4 because you have 4 quarters in a year. Right, so we should always remember that this interest rate, I over Y, is the interest rate per compounding period. Now when you're entering the value into your calculator, 50 divided by 4 is what? 12.5, right? So if you are to enter interest rate of 12.5 into your calculator, how should you enter it? Should you enter it as 12.5 or 0.125? This is 12.5%. And interest rate is usually stated as percentage. Now, if you are dealing with your calculator, all of these variables, you enter 12.5% as 12.5 because the calculator already knows that whatever figure you enter for I over Y is a rate. Do you understand? So if you go and enter 12.5%, the way we know it is equivalent to this. If you enter this guy, the calculator would assume you are talking about 0.125%. Do you understand? All right, so that's interest rate per compounding period. N is the number of compounding period in the question. Now we also spoke about PMT, which is what we know as annuity. a constant stream of income that you receive at regularly spaced intervals. Say for example, somebody promises to pay me 100K per month for the next 2 years. It's a constant sum, 100K, that I'll be receiving every month for the next 2 years. So that qualifies as an annuity, right? If someone says, you know what, Razak, I promise to be giving you quarterly 500K per quarter. Now, because it is occurring at regularly spaced intervals, like every quarter, I get 500K, it still is an annuity. Do you understand? But if someone says, okay, Razak, I'll give you, this is 2022, I'll give you 100K in January, February, April, July, August, December. It's not regularly spaced, you get? So you wouldn't call that an annuity. Clear? Now, we now spoke about two different types of annuity, depending on when those regular cash flows occur. Is it occurring at the beginning of every period or at the end of every period? Right? Now, depending on which one it is, we have different names for them. And why are we talking about the different types of annuity? Because it has implications on how we set our calculator for solving a particular question. So annuity, we have two types. For those of us who are in class, what are the names? Ordinary annuity. Don't mind my writing. And annuity due. Now, ordinary annuity is a situation where that regular cash flow is occurring at the end of every period, i.e., you promise me that, okay, you know what, Razak, I'll be giving you, maybe we're having this conversation January 1st, and part of your New Year resolution is that, Razak, don't worry, this year I want to bless you. I'll be giving you 100,000 naira every month. Now the question is are you going to fulfill your promise at the beginning of every month or at the end of every month? So if I ask you that question, you say, end of every month now, we are discussing ordinary annuity. The promise is made now, but the cash flows are coming at the end of every period. I hope we are following. But then if the answer to that my question, like after you made your promise, you said, don't worry, I'm going to be giving you 100K every month. You know what? The one for January, take, I bless you. That means the promise is to be giving me at the beginning of every period. When it's February, you give me the 100K you have promised at the beginning of February. So in that wise, the kind of annuity we are dealing with is annuity due. Right? This occurs at the end of every period. This occurs at the beginning of every period. Now, in terms of how you set your calculator to solve questions that deal with annuity due, you would have to put your calculator in beginning mode. Right? Beginning and end mode tells your calculator that, okay, the annuity in this question is either ordinary annuity or annuity due. So the question is, how do we put our calculators in beginning or end mode? By default, like if you check your calculator now, it is usually in end mode, right? So you may want to change it to beginning mode. Who can remind us how to do it? I've forgotten. Okay, if you check this button, PMT, there's something written on top of it. Have you seen it? BEG, beginning. So you have to put your calculator in beginning mode. Now, you know, for all of these buttons, when you have something written on top, for you to activate that function, you press second function, right? So it will be second function, PMT. When you press it, what can you see? So it confirms to you that currently your calculator is in end mode, but that's not what you want. You want to change your calculator to beginning mode, right? So how do we command the calculator to take it to beginning mode? Yeah, now those of us in class. So it's currently in end. So you do second function, enter, because we want to set the calculator to beginning. So now it's showing BEG, right? Now you can exit, like, you can see your calculator. Where's the CAC? On top, you can see that small BGN. So that's a reminder that, guy, your calculator is currently in beginning mode. So by the time you are done solving the annuity due question, it is good practice to take your calculator back to end mode, because most questions that will come are always in the end mode. This is so, and if you forget, maybe your question 1 is annuity due question, so you put your calculator in beginning mode, and then question 2 is ordinary annuity, and you forgot, well, you would miss that question, not because you don't know how to use your calculator, but because you forgot to change the mode, right? And CFA is aware that a lot of people would make these mistakes. So the option for that answer, for the incorrect answer, depending on the mode, will always be there. Do you understand? So please, let's make sure we check that out. Now, PV is present value. And what this is referring to is a lump sum that is being received today, like at the present, right? Whereas future value is referring to a lump sum in the future. So if you have a question that says story, once upon a time, maybe Razak's uncle promised him January 1 that he'll be giving him 50,000 naira every month for the next 12 months. At the end of the period, he's also going to give Razak a Christmas bonus of 5 million naira. Right. So that Christmas bonus that Razak is expected to receive as a lump sum in December will be referred to as future value. It is different from the regular 50K that is occurring every month. Is it clear? Now, if we're talking of a lump sum today, then we'll be talking about present value rather than future value. Both of them are lump sums. Future value is lump sum in the future. Present value is lump sum in the present. Kind of. All right, so I know we already started solving some small. Okay, another thing we talked about is the number line or the timeline. So usually when you're solving time value of money problems, sometimes it's good practice to present it on a timeline like this. So of course our starting point is usually point zero. Point zero is now, right? So for example, you have a question that, okay, so Razak is approaching a bank. He wants the bank to give him 5 million naira loan today. That will be what is a lump sum talking about today, 5 million naira. If I were to enter that variable in the calculator, where will I enter it? Is it N, I over Y, PMT, PV, or FV? PV, because it's a lump sum that I would be receiving. If the bank gives me the loan today, they will give me the 5 million naira today. Do you understand? So any cash flow that is occurring now would be at point zero on the timeline, right? Now we can have like time 1, 2, 3 up until time n, right? Now this 1, 2, 3 again, depending on the compounding frequency, is not compulsory that 1 has to be 1 year from now or 2 years from now. If you are dealing with monthly cash flows, timeline 1 will be 1 month from now. This will be 2 months from now. Are we following? Now, the concept of knowing at what point is the cash flow occurring. Now, there's a difference if I say, Razak, I'm going to give you 1 million naira at the beginning of year 1, as against if I say I'm going to give you 1 million naira at the end of year 1. They are different now from a time value of money perspective. Now you see this period between point 0, which is now, and point 1. Let's say this is yearly timeline. You know, this period covers a year, right? Now, if I tell you that I'm giving you 1 million naira at the beginning of year 1, where will the cash flow most likely be? Is this point A or point B? Point A. So it follows that the beginning of year 1 is equivalent to the end of year 0. Likewise, if I say I'm going to give you a cash flow at the beginning of year 2, where would that be? Point B. You know, remember, this corresponds to the end of year 1, and it's the same thing as the beginning of year 2. So why am I doing this explanation? Because you can get a question that, you know, they will tell you story. Once upon a time, they tell you so person is either receiving or paying a particular amount at the end of year 2. You automatically know that if you are drawing your timeline, because they say at the end of year 2, it will correspond to this point 2 on the timeline. If they tell you it's occurring at the beginning of year 2, you know that you can't trick me. You want me to make the mistake to put the cash flow on point 2. Because you are saying beginning of year 2 is the same thing as end of year 1. So I'll situate the cash flow at point B. Clear? Now, the other thing that we now spoke about is also the sign of the cash flow. At what point am I going to be entering a negative cash flow or a positive cash flow? And I said the best way to look at it is from the point of view of yourself. Are you taking money out of your pocket, or is money coming into your pocket? If you are taking money out of your pocket, the cash flow will be negative, because whatever is in your pocket before will decrease by that amount. If I am receiving money from somewhere, the cash in my pocket would increase, so that would be a positive cash flow. So let me ask a question. So I go to a bank to take a loan of 2 million naira. If I'm to represent that 2 million naira on, if I'm to represent the 2 million naira on my timeline, do you expect it to be a positive or a negative cash flow? Go to the bank to take 2 million naira loan. When they give me the loan, is it going to be a positive or a negative to my pocket? Morning, sir. Remember, we're looking at it from the point of view of me and my pocket. So I walk into a bank, first bank, please, I want to take a loan. We do all the paperwork, they approve the loan, and then they give me 2 million naira. My pocket will become fatter now because 2 million naira will enter my pocket, right? So that will be positive because that money is coming to me. Now when it's time to repay, maybe monthly, I'm supposed to be paying back 100K. That 100K will be leaving my pocket when I'm making the payment. Do you understand? Right. Likewise, maybe I want to make an investment. So I decide that, this money that is too much in my pocket, let me invest some. At the point of making that investment, will the cash flow be positive or negative? It will be negative because the money is initially leaving my pocket. Then maybe later when the return starts to come in, that will now be positive. Right. Okay, so I think that's like a very quick summary of what we did last week.